Thank you for making me a mom. A new life, still small, had taken up residence in my womb. I believed everyone would be overjoyed. Yet, my husband was engrossed in his acts of betrayal against me. Now, feeling happy 3 years later, I can talk about those times. I am Nell Burks. Back then, I was pregnant. Even past 5 months of pregnancy, the morning sickness continued and I often had to take time off from work. My husband is Greg. We met at a colleague's wedding after party. He, a year older than me, worked at the same company. The first time I heard his singing, I was smitten. Not love at first sight, but love at first listen. I approached him and our relationship began. 2 years later, when I was 27, we married.
Being an only child might be lonely, so we should have at least 2 kids, right?
Yeah, maybe 1 girl and 2 boys?
As long as they're healthy, the order doesn't matter.
Greg, an oldie child, and I with a half-brother. We wanted to give our child siblings. We were excited about having kids right after getting married. Looking back, that might have been our happiest time. But once married, we realized it wasn't all about chasing dreams. We had to plan for the future realistically. We decided not to have children for 3 years, focusing on saving money and enjoying life as a couple. Then, 2 years into our marriage, we relished our time together, indulging in shared hobbies like karaoke and exploring gourmet restaurants during weekends. Recently, Greg started playing golf on weekends, invited by his manager, leading us to spend weekends separately. I spent time doing things I liked. Being alone wasn't too bad. I had no significant complaints about our marriage, but there was something I regretted. That was our promise to not have children for 3 years. I heard from friends who had children, and I even had chances to hold their babies. Gradually, the desire to hold my own child grew stronger. Unable to wait any longer, I brought it up with Greg. Hey, don't you think it's time we had a child? Children are a blessing from God, so maybe we don't need to stick to our plan so rigidly. But Greg responded,
I'm not ready yet. We still have a year left of our 3-year promise. There's so much I still want to do. Having a child now would be inconvenient.
I was stunned. I had expected him to agree readily, but his unexpected reaction left me disappointed. This was something I couldn't do alone. Resigned to waiting, I decided to stick to our plan for another year. However, 6 months later, I unexpectedly discovered I was pregnant. I had been feeling nauseous for about a week and thought I had caught a cold. Then it dawned on me that my period was late. Could it be? The thought crossed my mind, but I dismissed it, confident in our birth control measures. Still, I decided to visit the gynecologist for peace of mind. After the examination, the doctor said,
You're pregnant,
without a smile. I had naively expected a cheerful congratulations, you're pregnant, like in the dramas, but his manner of tone was anticlimactic. As time passed, reality set in and I began to talk to my belly. Thank you for making me a mom. But when did it happen? I pondered and realized the exact date it must have occurred. Though earlier than I planned, I was sure Greg would be happy to know we were having a child. I waited for Greg's return, trying to contain my excitement.
Did something good happen?
Greg asked, noticing my unusual expression. Yes, actually, I'm pregnant.
Pregnant? Who? Wait, you mean?
That's right.
That's strange. Are you sure it's mine?
Excuse me? At Greg's words, it felt as if time had stopped for a moment. Of course it is. You might not remember because you were drunk. Greg thought for a moment and then seemed to recall.
Really? But it's too soon for kids. I'm sorry, but can we not go through with this?
I couldn't believe these were Greg's words. What? No way, this is our child. A blessing. You can't just say that. I'm definitely having this baby.
Seems like there is no convincing you. Go ahead and have it if you want. From heaven to hell.
Greg's indifferent words felt like a fall. His attitude changed dramatically afterwards.
Isn't your morning sickness a bit exaggerated?
Greg, insensitive to my struggles with morning sickness since the early stages of pregnancy, threw harsh words at me. I didn't expect him to fully understand the hardship of morning sickness, but at least a few kind words wouldn't be too much to ask for.
I'll eat out, so don't bother with dinner, or the smell bothers me. I'll sleep in the next room,
he would say, increasingly avoiding me and my frequent nausea. Greg's occasional weekend golf had become a weekly routine, and today, he left early again, invited by his manager. He's forgotten again. I noticed Greg had left his bag behind and thought I might still catch him, so I called his mobile phone. Huh? The sound of a mobile phone vibrating came from inside the bathroom. Looking over, I saw Greg's mobile phone ringing on top of the paper holder. Forgetting your mobile phone too? You're really hopeless. I picked up the phone. Excuse me? I saw the caller ID on the screen. An old hag. An old hag? Who's that? Just then, the sound of the entrance door opening echoed. Greg had come back to retrieve his forgotten item. In a rush, I hit the stop button on my phone and hurriedly put Greg's phone back in its place.
What are you doing?
His eyes narrowed as he snatched his mobile phone. There is no need to yell. I was just about to call you about your forgotten phone.
I'm in a hurry, so...
Without saying anything more, Greg grabbed his bag and phone and left. The words, an old hag, remained vividly etched in my mind. Dizziness overcame me and I slumped to the floor. My heart was pounding. I could hear its beats. I am not so oblivious. I had a vague sense that something was off with Greg's behavior. Yet somewhere in my heart I hoped I was mistaken, but my hopes were shattered. We had planned to go to Greg's parents' house for Christmas, but I couldn't because of severe morning sickness. Say hi to Kaylin and the others for me. As I saw him off at the entrance, Greg pointed at me, laughing.
Oh, what's with that outfit? You look like an old woman. It's embarrassing.
How cruel. Such words shouldn't be said even in jest. I could no longer feel a shred of affection. How are you feeling? Is the morning sickness still going on? The day after Greg left, I received a call from my mother-in-law, Kaylin, who expressed her concern. Yes, I'm fine. Sorry, I couldn't come. Don't worry about it, but it's lonely this year since both of you couldn't make it. Both of us? Greg was supposed to have gone to his parents' home. Before I could respond, Kaylin continued, well, it can't be helped. His manager's father passed away and he's always been good to us. That was Greg's excuse for not going home, apparently. What? I hadn't heard such a story. Nell, can you hear me? Yes. Something wrong? Don't keep worries to yourself. It's not good for the baby. Could Greg be cheating? I couldn't possibly say such a thing outright. I'm fine, just feeling a bit unstable. I guess it's because of the pregnancy. After ending the call with Kaylin, I immediately called Greg. Hello, this is Greg's mobile phone. Who's speaking? Oh, sorry, I dialed the wrong number. I quickly hung up, a bit startled. Was it a mistake? I checked the number I had for Greg. Greg. It was correct, and the woman on the phone had mentioned Greg's name twice. My call would be in Greg's call history. He should have called back, but he didn't. Greg's actions were increasingly suspicious. Looking back, there were other strange occurrences. Normally, we would visit his family about 3 times a year, but at Thanksgiving, I went alone. Greg had said he was helping with his manager's mother's funeral service and couldn't go, and now his father? Both parents passing away within 6 months, coinciding with our family visits? Too much of a coincidence. I immediately checked with a colleague from Greg's department. There's no such thing, they said. The frequent golf invitation from his manager had started before I knew I was pregnant. Greg was definitely hiding something, no doubt about it. Then Kaylin called again. Nell, are you really okay? Worried about my downhearted state, she had called again. I explained everything that had happened. I'm so sorry. Kaylin apologizing as if her son's misconduct was her responsibility. "You're my precious daughter too. Remember when I was hospitalized before your wedding? You were the first to rush to my side. That's when I knew I could trust you with our future. You would never betray us. I won't forgive anyone who makes my precious daughter cry, even if it's my own son. You're pregnant. Don't think strange thoughts. It's not good for the baby." Finally, Kaylin said, "Just make sure you do what you need to do," before hanging up. 2 days later, Greg returned as if nothing had happened.
"I'm home. The train was crowded. Terrible."
Pretending as if he had just come from his parents' house. In the following month, I got my affairs in order. I submitted my resignation at work. The company was preparing for my maternity leave and smoothly accepted my resignation. It was a relief that I would still receive maternity allowance even though I was resigning half a year before giving birth. Becoming unemployed was a bit daunting when thinking about the future. Of course, I kept my resignation a secret from Greg. "I've decided to take a week off starting tomorrow," I told Greg.
"You don't have to bother telling me that,"
he replied curtly. Although Greg seemed to have lost all interest in me, that actually worked in my favor. The next day, Greg probably left work right on time and came home. He entered the house breathless.
"What's going on?" Suddenly.
Greg was taken aback, seeing my parents-in-law relaxing on the living room sofa. Indeed, I had informed Greg about the parents-in-law visit via WhatsApp just an hour before his workday ended. "Oh, I told Nell in advance." Sorry, I completely forgot to tell Greg." Greg glared at me sideways. "Is it inconvenient that we came without notice? Neither of you came home for Christmas. My husband had time off, so we thought we would visit as tourists." Kaylin was a great actress. Greg certainly hadn't expected his parents to show up. He was in deep trouble now with his Christmas lie about to be exposed. "Greg, I just heard from Kaylin about the manager's father passing away and his mother passed away at Thanksgiving? Poor manager."
Yeah, that's right."
Greg's face was covered in sweat, not just from the surprise of his timely return home, but also from the fear of being exposed.
Sorry, the funeral service was sudden. I kept quiet because I thought it would be suspicious."
"Suspicious? Who would suspect and what exactly?" I imagine the same question mark appeared in the minds of the three of us, excluding Greg. Realizing this, Greg quickly changed the subject.
"Mom, Dad, have you had dinner yet? Let's go out and then hit a singing bar. It's been a while."
Karaoke was not just mine and Greg's hobby, but also a favorite pastime for my parents-in-law. A family outing to a singing bar was a rare event. We quickly finished dinner and went to the singing bar. Greg, having seemingly forgotten the inconvenient truth from earlier, proudly showcased his singing. He probably thought he was buttering up his parents, but he was actually digging his own grave, completely oblivious to it. "Since all four of us are here, let's do a duet." Kaylin took this opportunity to execute her plan. "That sounds great. Let's start with David. And Kaylin, show us how it's done." Thanks to Kaylin's quick thinking, an unexpected opportunity came my way. Next up, Greg and Nell. "Nell, why don't you pick the song?" "Okay then." I dragged a reluctant Greg to the stage. The song title displayed on the screen was a recently popular one about infidelity. "What?" I clearly saw Greg's eyes widen in shock. "Oh, a nostalgic choice." Kaylin chimed in. Greg, not even hot, was sweating profusely. As I linked arms with him, Kaylin said directly, "Greg, sing more seriously. Are you sweating because you're guilty of something?" Speaking of which, when David and I were newly married, I suspected him of infidelity.
"Yes, I remember. It was a complete misunderstanding by Kaylin. It taught me never to anger my wife. Greg, you better be careful."
Looking closely at Greg, his sweat-drenched face had turned pale.
I'm fine. Just had a bit too much to drink."
"Huh? Drank too much?" Greg usually only drinks cola at karaoke, not alcohol. Even today, he only had a sip of beer at first. "Oh, are you okay, Greg?" Don't overdo it. We are going back to our hotel, so let's call it a night. After saying goodbye to my parents-in-law who returned to their nearby book hotel, Greg and I went back to our condominium. The next morning, leaving Greg at home saying he wasn't feeling well, I went sightseeing with my parents-in-law. Even at night, Greg didn't come out of his room. So I called out, "Hey, are you okay?" Kaylin said they are leaving tomorrow. Seems the unfamiliar hotel is tiring them out. They prefer their own home.
Really? It's a shame I couldn't spend more time with them since they came all this way.
Greg emerged from his room seemingly relieved that his parents were leaving. Also, I have decided to go back with them. Greg appeared completely revived, knowing that the house would be empty except for him a while.
That's good for Mom and Dad. You should relax too, Nell. I'll take you to the station tomorrow.
The next morning, I said goodbye to Greg at the station and left with my parents-in-law. And that night,
wow,
Greg was shocked, as if he had seen a ghost. He almost collapsed at the sight of me and Kaylin standing at the entrance. Dropping his beer in surprise, it seemed he was literally taken aback. While feeling this, I just looked at Greg coldly without saying a word. Only David, my father-in-law, had actually gone home. Kaylin and I had returned to the condominium after some time. "Oh, you've spilled your beer? No need to be surprised. We are not ghosts, you know."
But Mom, you guys were supposed to go home. Huh?
Yes, David went back alone. I'm staying here tonight since I'm alone, but who might be visiting? There's a woman's coat hanging there.
That, a colleague from work. Others were here until a moment ago. They left and she's the only one now.
The woman must have hidden when we unexpectedly arrived. Peeking into the room, a young woman timidly appeared from the balcony. Good evening. Oh, sorry, just needed some fresh air. Mr. Greg, I'll be leaving soon. After saying that, she picked up her bag and left. I recognize that woman. Isn't she from Greg's department? Her voice sounded like the one on the phone.
You could have at least informed us. She left in such a shock.
Greg finally stood up and grabbed a new beer from the fridge to drink. You know, it's not good for a married man to be alone with a young woman when his wife is away. Kaylin remarked sarcastically, making Greg spit out his beer. I was thinking of saying hello to your always helpful manager before leaving.
No need to bother going all the way to the manager. It will be a laughing stock for an older woman to show up at the company.
Greg tried desperately to stop Kaylin's action, really, but since you always receive so much help from your manager, I'll just give them a call to express my gratitude. Saying that, Kaylin picked up Greg's mobile phone from the table.
Mom, stop it.
Greg frantically tried to retrieve his phone, but Kaylin was determined. Just lend it to me. It was the first time I saw the usually calm Kaylin raise her voice. Kaylin looked straight into Greg's eyes. Greg, is it really so embarrassing for me to thank your manager?
It's not that, but...
Unable to meet Kaylin's eyes, Greg responded in a small voice. Then it's fine, Greg, you make the call. Greg seemed to realize he couldn't anger his mother any further. Suddenly, he bowed his head towards Kaylin.
Mom, sorry, I meant to tell you the truth. The girl from earlier, it's not just a fling. Actually, she's pregnant. So I'm going to marry her and take responsibility.
What? I was utterly stunned by Greg's shocking confession. Greg, do you realize what you're saying? There's also your child in Nell's womb. How will you take responsibility for that?
It's Nell's fault. She decided to have the baby despite my opposition, and I can't even be sure if the baby's really mine. I mean, it happened just once unexpectedly. How can I trust that?
Kaylin? Kaylin snatched the beer from Greg's hand and threw it in his face.
What are you doing?
Does this not wake you up? I was thinking I wouldn't disown you if you sincerely apologized to Nell. And what about that girl just now? If she intended to marry you, why did she run away like that? Greg was left speechless, effectively admitting to their fear. There's no more room for leniency. If you say Nell's child isn't yours, then you are no longer my child either. From today, our ties as parent and child are severed. You understand, right? And you're forbidden from visiting our home or meeting the baby. I'll make sure you pay for hurting my daughter Nell. Tell your new wife too.
Mom?
Greg couldn't say anything more in the face of Kaylin's fury. Of course, even if she said they were cutting ties, it doesn't sever the legal family registration bond. Yet, that was the extent of Kaylin's feelings. This husband, he hurt not only me, his wife, but also his own mother. You can leave Kaylin and the others to me. Take care of your new wife and the child in her womb. Now, please sign these divorce papers and leave the keys to the condominium. I place the divorce papers and keys on the table. Let's go, Kaylin. I had already had my belongings picked up by movers. I never returned to the condominium. The next day, I finished my resignation at the company and went home with Kaylin. A few days after returning home, I received a WhatsApp message from Greg. The main points were, he filed the divorce papers. He would give me all the money we had saved together, asking me not to hire a lawyer. No words of regret, no apology. Just thinking about his own skin. I had no more lingering feelings. A few days after receiving WhatsApp from Greg, the father of his affair partner went out of his way to visit our family soon.
I'm terribly sorry for the trouble my daughter has caused.
He didn't want the matter to become public and offered settlement money. It turned out she wasn't even pregnant. Greg separated from her and resigned from his job. From what I heard from a colleague, that woman left the company and soon got engaged to another man. Rumors suggested that her parents hastily arranged a match to vanish her relationship with Greg like mist, pushing her into a new engagement. Greg divorced his pregnant wife. After that, a female employee from Greg's department resigned. These are the only two facts officially recorded at the company. Anything about Greg's relationship with that woman or their subsequent lives remain mere whispers and rumors. Nevertheless, labeled as the lowest man who cheated on his pregnant wife, Greg managed to turn all the female employees at his company against him. Unable to bear the scandal, Greg left the company 6 months later. The marital bond was severed, but the connection between me and his parents continued. To me, parents-in-law were technically adopted parents. Before our marriage, Greg had said,
eventually, Dad and Mom will be under Nell's care, so I want Nell to have a share of the inheritance.
He had asked his parents to adopt me. I had lost my parents early and was raised by my grandparents. Knowing my family circumstances, parents-in-law had adopted me as their daughter. It's safer for you to give birth here. Kaylin made various arrangements so I could deliver near my childhood home. Thanks to her efforts, I safely gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Hoping he would grow up humble and kind, my adopted parents named him Charles. Mom! My 3-year-old son, playing with Kaylin in the yard, ran up to me. I'm home! I picked up my son gazing at the sunset. Everyone perceives happiness in their own way. I want to show my son various beautiful scenes in life.
Nell, stay strong.
I felt as if my father and mother, who had passed away early, were smiling at me from the heavens.